Hi guys, today we are going to present you about accommodation theory. However, before we started, let us introduce ourselves. We are from IPCOS UMY 2020. Our group member is Dewa Aziz, Fajrimin Pratama, Didi Permana, Muhammad Sifa Arumi, and me, Sofi Sukmasari. So, happy watching! A. History and figure in theory. Communication Accommodation Theory or CAT studies how and why we adapt our communication behavior to communication behavior of our interlocutor. This theory was put forward by Howard Giles and his colleagues, relating to interpersonal adjustment in communication interactions. Communication Accommodation Theory began in 1973 when Howard Giles first introduced the idea of the assent mobility model based on various assents that could be heard in interview situation in any area. Thus, communication accommodation can be discussed by paying attention to the diversity of culture in the world. B. Depth exploration about theory. First, explanation about communication accommodation theory. Accommodation is defined as the ability to adjust, modify, or regulate one's behavior in response to others. Accommodation is usually done unconsciously. Accommodation allows for cooperation between social groups whose lives are separated as a result of psychological and cultural social factors. Communication Accommodation Theory or CAT is based on the principle of social identity theory, which is when members of different groups are together, then they will compare themselves. If the comparison is positive, then there will be a positive social identity as well as if the comparison is negative. Therefore, Howard Giles explained this thinking by saying the same thing also happen to a person's speaking style, like accent, tone, speed, and indirect patterns. Communication Accommodation Theory is based on the premise that when a person interacts, they adjust their speech, vocal patterns, and gestures to accommodate others. Therefore, it can be concluded that the essence of this communication accommodation theory is adaptation, how someone adjusts their communication with others. The second is assumption underlying the communication accommodation theory. A. Similarities and differences in speech and behavior exist in all conversations. An example to illustrate this assumption, a person from Manado meets a new friend at his new campus who is of native Batak descent. Obviously, they are from different backgrounds and their life experiences are different anyway. But they have something in common when it comes to hobbies, namely mountaineering. B. The way in which we perceive the speech and behavior of others will determine how we evaluate a conversation. This assumption lies in the perception and evaluation section. The first person will perceive what happens in the conversation before they decide how they will behave in the conversation. Then, when perceiving the words and behavior of the others leads to our evaluates of the person.
C. Language and behavior provide information about social status and group membership. It relates to the impact language has on others. The language used in conversation tends to reflect individuals with higher social status. D. Accommodations varies in terms of conformity and norms required the accommodations process. This assumption focuses on norms and issues of social appropriateness. That is, accommodation can vary in terms of social appropriateness. So, there are times when accommodating is inappropriate. The third, how to adapt in conversation through CAT option. A. Convergence. Convergence is a strategy in which individuals adapt to each other's communicative behaviors. When people do convergence, then they will rely on their perceptions of other people's speech or behavior. B. Divergence. Divergence is a strategy used to highlight the differences of each community communicator input verbal and non-verbal terms, it should be noted. Divergence is not in the sense that there is no concern for other communicators, but rather they associate themselves with certain reasons. C. Excessive accommodations. Excessive accommodations are labels given to speakers who are considered excessive listeners. These terms given to people who, while acting with good faith, are considered cons undisconding. C. Applications of CAT theory is in cases that occur in daily life. Communications accommodation theory or CAT can be used to overcome various cases that occur in daily life. For example, there is a person from Romania who traveled to Java Island for work, where he worked. The communication style he used in Romania had to adapt to other workers who were mostly or native Japanese descent so as not to be offended. Another example of the case is that a young man living in the interior of an island that very closely related to culture and accent decided to study in an urban area. Inevitably, he had to adapt to a new style's communications allowing it in order for others to understand what he meant. And the last is thank you for your attention. I hope you guys like these presentations. So that's all from us. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.